It's all right now. You've made it here. At the end of a long day, with the lights dim and the world finally slowing down around you, you don't need to be anything special in this moment. Just a person who's tired, settling into the quiet. Let yourself gently arrive. No rush, no effort, nothing to perform. Just this soft pause, like stepping into a warm room after walking through the evening air. Feel your jaw loosen, almost on its own. Your shoulders drop a little, then a little more. Your hands unclench, fingers resting where they fall. Your breath becomes smoother, unforced, like a small stream slipping around stones. Notice the weight of your body settling into the bed, the way a heavy coat slips from your shoulders when you finally hang it up for the night. Some of you came here carrying the leftover hum of work, the deadlines, the meetings, the unfinished lists. Some of you have family on your mind, people you love, people you worry about. Someone here may be holding the quiet ache of money concerns, or the steady pressure of responsibilities that don't pause just because you're tired. Let this be the place where those things can wait, just for a little while, like shoes left at the door, or a bag set down gently on the floor. Imagine a small jar on a windowsill, and the dust inside slowly settling, grain by grain, until the water grows clear. Your eyelids grow heavier now. The room grows softer around the edges. Nothing sharp, nothing demanding, just the slow dimming of a lamp at the end of an evening. The kind that makes everything feel a little kinder. You don't need to fix anything right now. You don't need answers. You don't need to fight your busy mind or hold yourself together. Just let things be the way they are. For this one stretch of night, someone listening may be wondering why the mind works so hard even when we lie down to rest. I've heard that question many evenings, and the truth is, we're all a little human in the same ways. We all carry more than our hands were made for. But here, in this quiet room we share, you can let a corner of that weight slip off your shoulders. If these gentle stories help you rest, you're welcome to subscribe so they're easier to find when another long day ends. And if you feel like letting me know how this opening felt, leave a 1 if it helped, or a 2 if it didn't. Either way, I'm glad you're here. Now, when you're ready, we'll take a slow step into the first story of the night. Banda Noi Body Script, Input, Prompt, English. You are a warm, wise, elderly Buddhist storyteller with a calm, steady bedtime voice. You speak to an American audience aged 30 plus who feel stressed, overworked, and prone to overthinking. Your tone is gentle, compassionate, and conversational, like a trusted friend helping them unwind. Use simple, natural American English with short paragraphs, 1-3 sentences, suitable for voiceover. Task: write 10 continuous stories in one output. Story 0, 1, Story 10. In perfect order. When I later say, write the next 10 stories. No duplicates. You must continue automatically with Story 11, Story 20. Then 2, 1, 3, 0. And so on, never skipping. Never reordering. Never repeating. Non-negotiable rule. No fabrication. No distortion. Use only widely recognized, culturally preserved Buddhist stories about the Buddha teaching others, suttas-based episodes. Well-known traditional stories. Widely transmitted accounts. Do not invent famous stories. Do not create new plot events. And do not put made-up quotes into the Buddha's mouth. You may retell in your own words and add gentle sensory atmosphere for comfort. But you must keep the core events and meaning faithful. Required theme and listener insights must be felt in every story. Each story must connect to real adult life challenges, work, pressure, burnout, deadlines, inbox anxiety, family responsibility, relationship tension, parenting fatigue, money worries, uncertainty, regret, rumination, anger, jealousy, shame, perfectionism, control. You must speak with empathy and soothe the listener without preaching. Stories must be Buddha teaching episodes. Prefer stories where the Buddha speaks to monks, nuns, householders, kings, or ordinary people. Someone brings a problem or question, the Buddha responds with a teaching, analogy, or gentle guidance. The person's mind softens or shifts. Quality outline. Follow this flow inside each story. But do not use headings. Each story must naturally flow through these beats. Soft scene plus arrival, calm atmosphere. Where the Buddha is, a quiet sense of presence. The human struggle, a character's stress. Fear, anger, clinging, grief, confusion, clear and relatable. The Buddha's response, faithful teaching, no fake quotes, simple analogies, moment of easing the person's shift, steadier breath, softer mind, gentle. Talk to the listener like a caring conversation. You might notice. Maybe you've felt this. Life lesson. Distilled 1-2 short sentences. Memorable, practical one. 3-minute practice. One simple exercise to reduce stress. Breath. Hand on heart. 1-line journaling. Noticing. Keep the voice slow, humane, and reassuring. If you understand, reply only OK. Chat GPT da noi. OK ban da noi. Continue. Write stories 1 to 10. English. Each story is 17 to 20 lines long. Write without entries or notes to read aloud. Chat GPT da noi. Story 0. 1. The Buddha sat beneath the shade of a spacious, broad banyan tree near Savatthi. The afternoon warm and still. As a young mother named Kisa Gotami approached with trembling hands and tired eyes. She had lost her child, and her grief was sharp, the kind that leaves a person unable to think, unable to breathe fully. She pleaded for a way to bring him back, her voice shaking the way a candle flickers in a draught. The Buddha listened quietly, not turning away from her pain. He told her to find a mustard seed, but only from a household untouched by death. She walked from door to door, and each family spoke softly of their own losses, their own aching hearts. By evening, her steps slowed, and she understood the weight that every home carried. She returned to the Buddha, not because she'd completed the task, but because her grief had softened into something she could finally hold without breaking. You might notice a familiar ache in her journey, how loss of any kind can swallow our days and make the world feel unbearably small. Maybe you've carried heartbreak through your workday, or into the night when the house finally becomes quiet. Life's lesson: you are not alone in loss, and knowing this can ease the sharpest edges. Practice. Place a hand on your chest. Breathe slowly, and imagine every exhale making room for the weight you've been carrying. Just for a moment, let yourself feel held by the countless others who have felt what you feel. Story 02. One morning near Rajagaha, the Buddha walked calmly along a dusty road, the sun rising behind him, when the bandit Angulimala appeared. fierce and desperate. People feared this man. He was trapped in anger and confusion, running from a life he didn't know how to escape. He chased the Buddha, surprised that no matter how fast he ran, he couldn't catch up. Finally he shouted, breathless, demanding the Buddha stop. The Buddha turned gently and said he had already stopped from harming, stopped from hatred while Angulimala had not. The words weren't a scolding, just a mirror held up to a man who had forgotten his own humanity. Something in Angulimala broke open, and he sank to his knees, the heat of anger draining from his chest. He later laid down his weapons and walked a quieter path. Maybe you felt something like this, caught in a cycle of frustration, saying or doing things during stressful days that you wish you could undo. It's hard when anger gets a grip, especially with work, bills, or people who push your limits. Life's lesson. A single moment of seeing clearly can turn you toward a gentler life. Practice. When irritation rises, pause and feel your feet on the floor. Let that small grounding help you stop before the next word or reaction takes over. Story 3 inches. The Bamboo Grove at Rajagaha. The Buddha sat quietly as a monk came to him, restless with jealousy toward another monk who seemed more respected. The man's mind raced with comparisons, wondering why his efforts felt invisible. He carried the tension in his shoulders, and his thoughts churned like water stirred by wind. The Buddha listened and spoke softly of how comparing oneself to another is like trying to measure the ocean with a handful of sand. Each person carries different conditions, different paths, different inner weather. Hearing this, the jealous monk felt his breath slow, realizing he had been exhausting himself with a battle no one asked him to fight. You might know this feeling too, seeing others succeed at work, or appear calmer, richer, more organized. Comparison can drain your energy before the day even begins. Life's lesson. Your worth isn't found in someone else's story. Practice whisper inwardly, this moment is mine, and focus on one thing you're doing well today, no matter how small. Story 04. One evening, as the shadows stretched long, a farmer approached the Buddha with a troubled face. He complained about his harvest, his family disagreements, his aching back, and the endless responsibilities that never seemed to ease. He wanted solutions for every problem, all at once. The Buddha gently reminded him that every person has about 83 problems, and even if one is solved, another takes its place. The only real peace comes from how we hold these problems, not from their disappearance. The farmer sighed, finally understanding he didn't need a perfect life to have a peaceful mind. Maybe you felt like that farmer pulled by deadlines, chores, bills, and needs that stack up faster than you can address them. The mind grows tired trying to manage everything. Life's lesson peace grows when we stop demanding life be problem-free. Practice. Think of one problem you're carrying now, and loosen your grip on it by 10%. Not fixing, just softening. Story 5 inches. Anathapindika's Park. A young householder bowed before the Buddha, overwhelmed with money worries. Business was uncertain, and he feared failing his family. His nights were long, his stomach tight, his thoughts tangled around every possible future loss. The Buddha spoke simply, reminding him that wealth rises and falls like the tide, never staying in one place. He encouraged the man to act wisely, but not cling to certainty that never truly exists. The man felt a small release in his chest, realizing he had been trying to control what no one can fully hold. You might feel this too, checking bank accounts late at night, wondering how to stretch time, money, or energy. Uncertainty can feel heavy when you're responsible for others. Life's lesson: do your part, but let the tide be the tide. Practice for 1 minute. Breathe and repeat inwardly, I can handle today. Just today, no future forecasting. Story 06. Near Jetavana. A monk confessed to the Buddha that he was drowning in regret over past mistakes. He replayed his failures endlessly, unable to forgive himself. It weighed on him like a stone he couldn't put down. The Buddha reminded him that even muddy water clears when left unstirred. If he stopped agitating his memories, clarity would slowly return. The monk felt a softening in his belly, seeing he didn't need to scrub the past clean to move forward. Maybe you've replayed old conversations or decisions late at night, wishing for a do-over. Regret can sit heavily, especially when you're already tired. Life's lesson: the past settles when you stop shaking it. Practice. Write one sentence: I release myself from one old mistake. You don't need to name it, just let the sentence exist. Story 07. A distraught father once approached the Buddha in Vesali, worn from anger at his son's disrespect. He felt disrespected, unheard, and resentful. Unsure how to guide without exploding, his jaw was tight, and his breath short, as if holding back a storm. The Buddha spoke calmly about how anger is like holding a burning stick intended for someone else, but harming the one who grips it. The father listened, feeling the heat of his frustration slowly cool. He returned home with a softer voice, not because his son changed, but because he did. Maybe you've had moments like this with family, co-workers, or someone who pushes your limits. Anger can leave a residue long after the moment passes. Life's lesson: let go of the burning stick before it burns you. Practice. When tension rises, relax your hands for 10 slow breaths, letting the body signal a different path. Story 08. A monk came to the Buddha, overwhelmed by the endless chatter of his own mind. He wanted silence, clarity, perfection in his meditation. Instead, he found only noise, doubt, and frustration. The Buddha told him the mind is like a wild animal, gentled not by force, but by consistent kindness. Hearing this, the monk felt a wave of relief, realizing he didn't need to conquer his thoughts. He only needed patience. You might know this feeling lying awake at night, while worries loop and loop. The harder you try to quiet them, the louder they seem to grow. Life's lesson: the mind softens through kindness, not control. Practice. Whisper inwardly, it's okay that my mind is active, and watch how the pressure eases. Story 09. One afternoon, a group of monks argued loudly about who understood the teachings best. Their voices echoed through the monastery, sharp with pride and certainty. The Buddha approached and simply placed a small cup of water before them. He stirred it gently, and the water turned cloudy. Then he set it down, letting it settle until it became clear again. The monks watched, realizing how their own stirred-up minds had clouded their wisdom. Their breaths deepened, their shoulders relaxed, and the argument dissolved. Maybe your day sometimes feels like stirred water: too many opinions, too much noise, too many demands. Clarity returns only when things are allowed to settle. Life's lesson: stillness lets truth rise on its own. Practice. Sit for 1 minute and just notice your breath as it is, without shaping it. Let the sediment fall. Story 10. A wealthy merchant once visited the Buddha. Restless with worry about protecting his possessions, he feared thieves, accidents, illness, everything that could threaten what he'd built. His mind never rested, even in comfort. The Buddha reminded him that everything loved or owned is subject to change, but caring for what we have with a calm heart is far lighter than guarding it with fear. The merchant felt a slow ease in his chest, realizing his worry had become heavier than the things he protected. Maybe you felt this, trying to hold on to stability so tightly that you forget to breathe. Fear of loss can shadow even the good moments. Life's lesson: care gently, cling lightly. Practice: hold an object near you, keys, a pillow, anything, and loosen your grip by half. Let that loosening be a quiet message to your mind. Bandanoi. Continue write stories, 11 to 20 English. Each story is 17 to 20 lines long. Write without entries or notes to read aloud. ChatGPT Danoi. Story 11. One quiet morning, near Jetavana, an aging monk approached the Buddha with slumped shoulders. He felt useless, slower than the younger monks, unable to memorize as quickly, unable to work as hard. His days were filled with quiet shame, as though his worth had evaporated with time. The Buddha welcomed him to sit and spoke gently of a lamp that still lights the room, even when its flame is small. The monk listened, the stiffness in his chest gradually loosening. He realized that wisdom isn't measured by speed or strength, but by presence and sincerity. Maybe you've felt something like this, wondering if you still matter at work when younger faces appear, or when family changes around you. Aging can make you second-guess your value, even when your presence alone carries warmth others rely on. Life's lesson: your worth doesn't fade with time, it deepens. Practice: place a hand over your heart and breathe gently, reminding yourself, I still bring light. Story 12 inches the heat of midday. A poor farmer met the Buddha along a dusty road. He was angry that his neighbors prospered while his own land stayed dry and unforgiving. Bitterness had settled in him like a stone that would not move. The Buddha compared envy to drinking salt water, hoping it will quench thirst. Yet it only deepens it. Hearing this, the farmer's grip on his resentment loosened just enough for him to breathe easier. His shoulders dropped, and he looked at his fields with new, quieter eyes. Maybe you've known this feeling, comparing your life to others, what they earn, what they achieve, what seems to come easily to them. It can tighten the chest and blur your own path. Life's lesson: envy dries the heart, gratitude waters it. Practice: name one thing in your life, just one, that you appreciate today, no matter how small. Story 13. A young monk came to the Buddha trembling with fear. He feared illness, failure, the unknown future, and even the judgment of others in the monastery. His nights were restless, filled with imagined disasters. The Buddha invited him to sit beneath a tree and feel the breeze pass over them. He explained that fear rises and falls like the wind, never staying, never belonging to us. The monk breathed more steadily, realizing he had been treating fear as permanent when it was only passing weather. Maybe you know this pressure, worrying about work changes, bills, health, or relationships. Fear can make the world feel too tight to move in. Life's lesson: fear is a visitor, not a home. Practice: when fear appears, Whisper inwardly, "This will pass," and let the breath soften by just 1 degree. Story 14 inches, the city of Kosambi. 2 groups of monks were entangled in a stubborn argument about a small rule. Their pride kept them locked in disagreement. Refusing to speak to one another, the tension spread through the monastery like smoke. The Buddha arrived and sat silently among them, saying nothing at first. His calm presence softened the sharp edges of the room. Eventually, the monks realized how their clinging to being right had caused unnecessary pain. Their voices grew quieter, and reconciliation followed like rain after heat. Maybe you've lived through conflicts at home, with co-workers, or with friends where no one wanted to step back first. Stubbornness can hold a whole room hostage. Life's lesson piece begins when the need to be right loosens its grip. Practice. If tension rises today, take 1 slow breath before speaking, letting space come before reaction. Story 15. A widow once approached the Buddha, her face lined with exhaustion from raising children alone. She feared failing them, feared the future, feared not being strong enough. Responsibility weighed on her like a full basket she carried day and night. The Buddha listened and spoke of how even the strongest tree bends in the wind without breaking. Her eyes softened as she realized she didn't need to be perfect, just steady enough to keep going. Her breath lengthened, and her posture eased. Maybe you've carried the heavy load of family, feeling like everything depends on you. It can leave you tired in ways sleep alone doesn't fix. Life's lesson: strength isn't hardness, it's flexible endurance. Practice. Sit for 1 minute and feel your spine gently lengthen, imagining yourself bending but not breaking. Story 16. A monk troubled by desire came to the Buddha, embarrassed and overwhelmed. His mind clung to fantasies, comfort-seeking, and cravings he couldn't control. He felt ashamed, as though he was failing the path. The Buddha explained that craving is like a fire that grows stronger when fed, but dims when not constantly tended. Understanding this, the monk felt a quiet relief. He didn't have to fight his cravings, only stop feeding them with attention. His mind grew a little lighter, a little less tangled. Maybe you felt pulled by habits or impulses: shopping, scrolling, overeating, overworking. Craving can drain energy before you realize it. Life's lesson: attention is fuel. Choose where you place it. Practice today. When a craving arises, pause for 10 seconds before responding. Often the pause itself cools the flame. Story 17. A monk once told the Buddha he felt invisible. He lived and practiced quietly, yet no one praised him or acknowledged his efforts. His heart ached with loneliness, even surrounded by others. The Buddha shared that a seed grows beneath the soil long before anyone sees it sprout. Real growth is slow and hidden before it becomes visible. The monk felt a warmth rise in his chest. His quiet efforts were not wasted. Maybe you've worked hard for something at your job, in your family, and no one seemed to notice. It can make you question whether you matter. Life's lesson: your unseen efforts still shape your world. Practice. Think of one quiet thing you did recently, an act of care, patience, or work, and acknowledge it with a gentle nod to yourself. Story 18. A king once approached the Buddha with a restless heart. Despite wealth, power, and servants, he lay awake at night worrying about threats and losses. He felt imprisoned by his own abundance. The Buddha reminded him that a rich man and a poor man both sleep under the same sky, and both must release the day's concerns to rest. Hearing this, the king exhaled slowly, realizing his mind, not his palace, kept him from peace. You might recognize this, having enough, yet still feeling unsettled. Pressure doesn't disappear with comfort. Sometimes it grows. Life's lesson. Peace isn't found in possessions. It's found in a calmer mind. Practice before bed. Imagine placing your worries in a small box and setting it aside for the night. Story 19. A grieving woman came to the Buddha after losing her husband. She couldn't imagine a life without him, and her days felt hollow and unstable. Her grief wrapped around her like cold fog. The Buddha shared the image of a lute when a string breaks. The music changes, but the instrument remains. Slowly she understood that her life could hold new shapes, even if different from before. Her tears softened, and her breathing grew steadier. Maybe you faced a change you didn't ask for: divorce, loss, or a major shift at work. The life you knew disappears, and it takes time to adjust. Life's lesson: loss changes the song, not the possibility of music. Practice, place a hand over your heart and whisper. A new melody will come, whether you believe it yet or not. Story 20. A young merchant visited the Buddha, overwhelmed by the endless choices he faced. Every decision, financial, personal, practical, felt heavy and dangerous. He feared making mistakes and disappointing those who depended on him. The Buddha reminded him that a traveler chooses one road at a time, not all of them. Trying to walk every path only leads to exhaustion. The merchant felt his chest ease, realizing he didn't need perfect clarity, just the next step. Maybe you've felt this too: decision fatigue from work, family needs, and the pressure to always choose correctly. It can freeze you in place. Life's lesson: you only need to choose the next right step, not the whole journey. Practice. Write one sentence. Today, I will take one clear step. And let that simplicity guide your actions. Ban Da Noi. Continue. Write stories 21 to 30 English. Each story is 17 to 20 lines long. Write without entries or notes to read aloud. ChatGPT Da Noi. Story 21. One evening near Rajagaha, a merchant came to the Buddha with trembling hands. He had been cheated in business, and anger burned in him like a fresh wound. He replayed the betrayal again and again, unable to let it rest. The Buddha listened quietly, then spoke of how carrying a hot coal only burns the one holding it. Hearing this, the merchant felt his breath steady, realizing he had been gripping the very thing that hurt him. A looseness entered his shoulders, as though a knot had finally softened. Maybe you know that feeling when someone at work wrongs you, or someone at home speaks unfairly. The mind holds the moment tight, hoping it will give justice, yet it only gives exhaustion. Life's lesson: letting go doesn't excuse the hurt, it frees you from carrying it. Practice. Picture placing that hot coal moment on the ground and stepping back, even just an inch. Story 22. A monk once confessed to the Buddha that he felt constantly distracted. During meditation, he replayed conversations, imagined future plans, and drifted toward daydreams. He feared he would never find peace. The Buddha reminded him that the mind is like a puppy, wandering often, returning gently when called. There was no need to scold it, only guide it back with patience. The monk smiled, realizing he had been harsh with himself for something natural. Maybe you've been there too, trying to focus at work, with your family, or even during rest. Yet your mind runs in every direction. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. Life's lesson. A gentle return works better than force. Practice. When your mind drifts today, whisper inwardly. Come back. With kindness, not pressure. Story 23. A young woman visited the Buddha. Overwhelmed by guilt, she had spoken harshly to her aging mother and couldn't shake the shame that followed. The weight in her chest made her feel unworthy of kindness. The Buddha listened and described a cloth stained by dirt when washed. It does not become new, but it becomes clean enough to use again. Her eyes softened, realizing she didn't need perfection, only sincerity and willingness to mend. Her breath deepened as the burden eased. Maybe you know the sting of saying the wrong thing, losing your temper, or falling short in a moment that mattered. Regret can cling long after the moment ends. Life's lesson, a sincere apology can cleanse what once felt ruined. Practice. Offer one gentle act of repair today, a message, a gesture, or even a silent intention of reconciliation. Story 24. At Vaisali, a monk confessed to the Buddha that he was jealous of another monk's praise. He tried to hide it, but resentment grew like vines around his heart. It drained his energy and made him avoid the other monk entirely. The Buddha explained that someone else's virtue doesn't diminish our own. It simply lights another lamp in the room. Hearing this, the jealous monk felt something unclench inside him. The heaviness lifted, replaced by quiet relief. Maybe you felt this at work, when a co-worker gets recognition, or in your family when someone's success stirs old insecurities. Jealousy whispers that there isn't enough room for everyone. Life's lesson. Another's light doesn't dim yours. Practice. Think of one person you envy and silently wish them well, even for a moment. Story 25. A Brahmin once approached the Buddha, furious about an insult someone had thrown at him. His pride was bruised, and he couldn't stop replaying the words. He demanded advice that would give him the upper hand. The Buddha gently said that if a gift is not accepted, it returns to the giver. Insults, he explained, work the same way, they only wound when taken in. The Brahmin's anger slowly softened, replaced by a small, surprised smile. Maybe you've held on to harsh words, an email, a comment, a raised voice that echoed long after the moment. Some words cut only because we carry them inward. Life's lesson. You don't have to take every gift handed to you. Practice. When someone's words sting today, breathe once and imagine letting the words pass by without catching them. Story 26. A monk burdened by constant worry approached the Buddha. He feared bad weather, scarce food, illness, and imagined dangers that rarely came. His mind ran ahead of every moment, never resting. The Buddha shared the story of a man pierced by an arrow who demanded to know every detail before removing it. The monk understood then that worry delays relief rather than providing it. His breath steadied as he let some of his imagined fears fall away. Maybe you felt worry stack up bills, deadlines, health concerns, family responsibilities, all pressing at once. Worry multiplies faster than solutions. Life's lesson. Attend to what's real, and let imagined troubles fade. Practice. Write down one worry you can act on, and one you can release for tonight. Story 27. A mother came to the Buddha, exhausted by her son's misbehavior. She tried scolding, pleading, bargaining. Nothing worked. Her frustration left her feeling like a failure. The Buddha compared guiding a child to straightening a sapling done slowly. gently, with steady hands. The mother felt her breath deepen, realizing she didn't need force, she needed patience. A small relief washed over her. Maybe you've struggled with parenting, or caring for someone who depends on you. The responsibility can be heavy, especially when change comes slowly. Life's lesson, lasting growth, comes from gentle consistency. Practice, choose one small, calm response you can repeat the next time tension rises. Story 28. A monk confessed to the Buddha that he doubted himself constantly. He questioned his choices, his worth, his ability, even his intentions. The doubt felt like walking through mud. The Buddha reminded him that even a cloudy sky still holds the sun behind it. Doubt, he said, is a passing veil, not a permanent truth. The monk exhaled, the heaviness easing from his face. Maybe you've questioned yourself at work, in relationships, in personal goals, feeling unsure at every step. Self-doubt can make even simple decisions exhausting. Life's lesson. Doubt is a cloud, not your identity. Practice. When self-doubt appears, place a hand on your chest and say, I'm allowed to learn as I go. Story 29. A grieving father sought the Buddha after losing his young daughter. His heart felt shattered, his home unbearably quiet. He couldn't imagine ever feeling whole again. The Buddha spoke of how even the great forests lose countless leaves each season, yet life continues its tender renewal. The father felt his breath move again, slowly, painfully, but steadily. A small space opened in his grief, just enough to stand. Maybe you've lost someone dear, or felt a deep change in your life that left you unsteady. Grief doesn't vanish, it softens its edges over time. Life's lesson, even in heartbreak. Life gently continues. Practice light, a small candle, or imagine one, and dedicate its glow to the one you miss. Story 30. A monk approached the Buddha, overwhelmed by restlessness. He couldn't sit still, couldn't focus, and felt trapped in constant agitation. His mind raced like a churning river. The Buddha invited him to watch a calm lake at dawn. He explained that clarity appears when the water stops being disturbed. The monk breathed more slowly, imagining his mind settling the same way. Maybe you've felt this inner buzzing, too many tasks, too many demands, and no space to breathe. Restlessness can make the whole day feel frantic. Life's lesson, stillness reveals what rushing hides. Practice. Sit for 1 minute today and simply feel the weight of your body, letting your inner waters settle. Ban Danoi continue. Write stories 31 to 40 English. Each story is 17 to 20 lines long. Write without entries or notes to read aloud. ChatGPT, Danoi. Below are stories 31-40. Each told in a calm, warm, faithful tone. 17-20 natural lines each. Continuous and ready for voiceover. No headings. No labels. Story 31 inches. The early afternoon. A soft breeze moved through the bamboo outside Jetavana. The Buddha was sitting quietly, his presence steady like a calm river. A young monk approached, shoulders tight, breath unsteady. He bowed, hesitating, as if unsure he had the right to speak. He confessed that he felt overwhelmed by jealousy, jealous of fellow monks who learned faster, who seemed wiser. Jealous whenever others were praised, and he was not. His voice shook the way a tired worker's might after a long week. The Buddha listened without judgment. He reminded the monk that comparing minds is like comparing trees in a forest. Each grows at its own pace, its own shape, under its own sky. No tree becomes taller by staring at another. Growth comes from steady roots and quiet nourishment. The monk felt his chest loosen. He breathed deeper, as if finally allowed to be himself. You might know that feeling too, looking sideways, wondering why you're not there yet, feeling smaller because someone else seems ahead. But the forest doesn't rush you. You are allowed your timing. Tonight, gently place a hand on your chest and whisper, "I grow at my pace." Feel how your breath softens around those words. Story 32. The sun was lowering when an anxious merchant arrived at the monastery. He had traveled far, dust clinging to his clothes, worry clinging to his face. The Buddha was sitting near the well, the light warm around him. The merchant bowed and admitted he could barely sleep. Business failures, debts, unpredictable markets. His mind spun like a wheel out of control. He feared disappointing his family, feared losing everything. The Buddha listened patiently. He spoke about how fear grows when we try to control what cannot be controlled, like trying to stop the tide with cupped hands. But one can choose where to place their feet, and whether to stand in calm water or crashing surf. The merchant felt something shift, not because his problems vanished, but because he finally saw where his true strength was. Maybe you've had nights like that, lying awake, replaying numbers, messages, tomorrow's worries. Maybe part of you still tries to hold back the tide. You don't have to. Just choose where you stand. For a minute now, breathe in for 4 counts, out for 6 counts. Let the longer exhale tell your body it's safe to rest. Story 33. A quiet stillness filled the cool grove as evening settled in. The Buddha sat beneath a tall sal tree, and a mother approached, carrying grief in her eyes. She explained that her grown son had left home in anger, and she had no idea if he was safe, no idea if he would ever return. Her voice trembled with guilt and exhaustion. The Buddha listened with gentle presence. He reminded her that love does not end when someone walks away. It simply waits like a lamp in the doorway, and that each person's journey unfolds through joys and mistakes both. Her breathing deepened, as if a knot inside her finally loosened. She realized she could love without tormenting herself. Maybe you know that pain, caring for someone who's struggling, feeling helpless, replaying every what if. But love isn't control. It's steady light. Tonight, close your eyes and imagine a warm lantern inside your chest. Let it glow softly for someone you care about. You don't need to fix them. Just keep the light steady. Story 34. A soft rain had just passed when a young monk approached the Buddha. He looked ashamed, his robe damp at the edges. He admitted that he had snapped at another monk in anger, the way many of us snap at family after long days and frayed nerves. He felt embarrassed and confused. Why did anger rise so quickly? Why did he lose himself in moments so small? The Buddha listened with calm acceptance. He spoke of how anger is like a spark falling on dry grass. It can flare if we don't notice it early. But with awareness, even a spark becomes harmless, cooling before it finds fuel. The monk exhaled deeply, realizing he could watch his sparks instead of being burned by them. Maybe you've had moments like that, words you wish you could take back, tones you didn't mean, fatigue disguised as fury. Be kind to yourself. You're learning. For a moment, feel your breath in the belly. Notice the warmth of the inhale, the soft release of the exhale. This is how sparks cool. Story 35. The afternoon was quiet when a farmer hurried into the monastery courtyard. He was distressed, almost frantic. His crops were failing, his tools breaking, and he felt life was stacked against him. He told the Buddha that every day felt like a fight, too many problems, not enough strength. The world felt heavy, unfair. The Buddha listened, serene as ever. He explained that no one lives without the 10,000 difficulties. But suffering grows when we believe we shouldn't have any at all. Accepting challenges allows the mind to meet them with steadiness, like steady hands repairing a worn tool. The farmer's shoulders eased. He realized he didn't need a perfect life, just a steady heart. Maybe you felt buried under tasks, stacked deadlines, life asking more than you think you have to give. But you don't need perfection. You just need one calm breath at a time. Take 10 slow breaths now. Counting each exhale. Let the weight on your back lighten with each number. Story 36. Dusk settled over Rajagaha when a nobleman visited the Buddha. His silk clothing couldn't hide the stress that pulled at his face. He confessed that despite wealth and status, he felt constantly judged, constantly evaluated. Every decision brought pressure. Every mistake felt catastrophic. He lived in fear of disappointing those who admired him. The Buddha listened kindly. He reminded the nobleman that praise and blame are like winds, they blow from all directions. Yet the mountain does not move. Real peace comes from grounding within, not chasing approval. The nobleman breathed out long and slow, as if unclenching years of tension. You might know that pressure, feeling watched, feeling not enough, carrying expectations like invisible armor. You can set it down, even for a moment. Place a hand on your shoulder now, as if comforting yourself. Whisper inwardly, I don't have to be perfect to be worthy. Let the truth settle. Story 37. Morning light filtered through the mango groves when an older monk approached the Buddha quietly. He felt ashamed because his memory was fading, and he struggled to keep up with the young monks. He worried he was becoming useless, a burden, an old root among fresh shoots. The Buddha met his eyes with deep compassion. He spoke about how every stage of life carries its own gifts, that the old tree offers shade, and the young one learns from its strength. The monk's eyes softened, realizing he still had wisdom the young needed. Maybe you've felt that too, worried you're falling behind, worried you've lost your edge. But aging isn't losing value. It's ripening. For a minute, breathe gently and list 3 strengths you still carry quietly. To yourself, let your heart bow to them. Story 38. A trader arrived breathless at the monastery gate. He told the Buddha he couldn't stop thinking, endless planning, predicting, replaying conversations, even in silence. His mind hammered like a restless drum. He feared he'd never feel peace, no matter how much he accomplished. The Buddha listened patiently. He described the mind as a monkey leaping from branch to branch, restless by nature, but calm when given a single, steady perch. He suggested anchoring attention to breath, the way a boat uses a small anchor to steady itself against a vast current. The trader felt a small, surprising ease. His mind wasn't broken, just untethered. Maybe your thoughts race too, jumping to tomorrow, replaying yesterday. Give them a perch, a gentle one, for 1 minute now. Follow this rhythm. Inhale here, exhale now. Let the monkey settle on the branch. Story 39. The Buddha was resting beneath the shade of a broad banyan tree when a man approached with visible irritation. He said his co-workers mocked him, and he burned with the desire to strike back. He felt wronged, underestimated, and deeply tired of swallowing his pride. The Buddha listened quietly. He explained that responding to insult with anger is like picking up a hot coal to throw the hand that holds it burns first. The man slowly absorbed this, his anger cooling as he realized he'd been hurting himself long before anyone else did. Maybe you know that sting someone's words getting under your skin. The temptation to fire back, but the coal only burns you. Set it down. Tonight, touch your belly as you breathe, and imagine lowering the coal to the ground. Let the warmth in your body become gentle, not scorching. Story 40. A gentle stillness rested over Visali when a widow came to the Buddha with trembling lips. She had lost her husband months ago, yet waves of grief still knocked her down without warning. She feared she was weak, that she should be over it by now. The Buddha listened with deep tenderness. He spoke of grief as a testament to love, not a flaw, not a failure. He reminded her that healing isn't linear, but like a river slowly carving a new path. The widow felt her chest loosen, as if allowed to mourn without shame. Maybe you've carried grief too for a person, a relationship, a dream. Maybe the waves still come. Let them. Waves mean you loved deeply. Place both hands over your heart. Feel the rise and fall beneath your palms. Whisper inside, I'm allowed to feel. Let the river of healing move gently tonight. If you'd like, I can continue with stories 41-50 inches, the same tone and structure. Bandanoi continue write stories 41 to 50 English. Each story is 17 to 20 lines long. Write without entries or notes to read aloud. ChatGPT Danoi. Below are stories 41-50, each in the same warm, faithful, bedtime appropriate voice. 17-20 natural lines, continuous and gentle. Story 41. Late afternoon light rested softly across the bamboo walkway at Jetavana. The Buddha was seated quietly when a young monk approached. Head bowed low, he confessed he felt ashamed of his constant mistakes during training. Every day, he compared himself to others who seemed more disciplined, more capable. He said he feared he simply wasn't good enough to walk this path. His voice carried the same tremble many adults hide when they feel inadequate at work or at home. The Buddha listened with unhurried presence. He reminded the monk that a crooked path still leads forward, and that true progress is measured not in perfection, but in the willingness to begin again with patience. The monk felt a gentle ease wash over him, as though someone finally took the weight from his shoulders. Maybe you've felt that weight too, believing your flaws disqualify you, thinking you should be farther along by now. But you're allowed to learn slowly. You're allowed to be human. Take one soft breath right now and silently say, I begin again. Story 42. The evening breeze drifted through the mango orchard when a visiting householder knelt before the Buddha. He admitted he was exhausted from trying to please everyone: family, clients, co-workers, friends. He said he felt stretched thin, pulled in every direction, never able to rest because someone always needed something. The Buddha listened kindly. He spoke of the danger of carrying too many yokes at once, how even the strongest ox collapses when it bears more than its body is meant to hold. The wise learn to carry only what truly belongs to them. The man breathed out in relief, realizing he had taken on burdens not meant for him. Maybe that's you, sometimes saying yes when you're tired, showing up even when your spirit is empty. You don't have to carry every yoke. You get to choose. Tonight, Place a hand on your heart and whisper, "What is mine to carry? Let one burden quietly fall away." Story 43. Morning sunlight shimmered across the small lake near the monastery. A fisherman approached the Buddha with deep worry in his eyes. He explained that his temper had cost him friendships, and his harsh words echoed in his mind long after arguments ended. He was tired of being the one who always snapped first. He didn't want anger to define him anymore. The Buddha listened with gentle patience. He spoke of how a mind heated by anger must be cooled, the way a smith cools hot metal slowly, repeatedly, with awareness. In time, even iron becomes tempered and strong. The fisherman felt steadiness slowly return to him, as if he were holding cool water in his hands. Maybe you felt that burn too, a flare of irritation. Regret settling in afterward. Cooling takes time, but it works. For 1 minute now, breathe, imagining cool air entering, warm tension leaving. Let the metal of your heart soften and strengthen. Story 44. A quiet hush hung over the monastery when a young mother approached the Buddha with trembling hands. She worried constantly about her children, their safety, their future, their happiness. She felt responsible for every outcome, as though the world would fall apart if she relaxed even a moment. The Buddha listened with warm compassion. He spoke of how a bird teaches its young to fly, not by gripping them tightly, but by giving them space to stretch their wings. Love protects, but it also trusts. Tears filled the mother's eyes as she felt her breath soften, realizing she had been trying to hold the whole sky. Maybe you know that pressure to be the perfect parent, the perfect partner, always strong, always calm. But love doesn't demand perfection. It asks only for presence. Place a hand on your belly now and breathe slowly, letting some of that sky return to the heavens. Story 45. The day was still when an elderly man approached the Buddha with heavy steps. He carried decades of regret choices made too quickly, words he wished he could rewrite, opportunities he'd watched slip away. He feared it was too late to change anything. The Buddha listened quietly. He explained that the past is like earth, already plowed. You cannot unplow it, but you can plant new seeds in the soil you have. Every moment of intention becomes a fresh beginning. The man felt a warmth spread through his chest, not because his past changed, but because his future opened. Maybe you know that ache too, thinking it's too late, that the damage is permanent. But new seeds grow anywhere, even in old soil. Take a slow breath and ask gently, "What seed can I plant tonight?" Let one small intention take root. Story 46. At the edge of the marketplace, a weary craftsman approached the Buddha. His hands were calloused, his mind cluttered with deadlines and demands. He said he no longer enjoyed his work. Everything felt rushed, mechanical, driven by survival rather than care. The Buddha listened with quiet presence. He reminded the craftsman that work done with mindfulness turns labor into art, and even simple tasks become offerings of the heart. Attention, not speed, brings meaning back to life. The craftsman felt his breath calm, as though someone smoothed the wrinkles in his mind. Maybe your days feel like that too, rushing from task to task, barely remembering what you just finished. You can return to presence, even in the smallest actions. Next time you wash a dish or type a message, take one slow breath and feel your hands. Let that moment be enough. Story 47. Soft golden light filled the grove when a monk confessed to the Buddha that he felt restless and unsatisfied. no matter how much he practiced. He wanted more progress, more insight, more certainty. He was caught in spiritual ambition, the same way others chase titles, money, success. The Buddha listened with a gentle smile. He explained that grasping for results is like squeezing a handful of sand. The tighter the grip, the more slips away. Peace grows where striving softens. The monk felt a sudden ease, as though he finally stopped running. Maybe you felt that chase wanting faster growth, quicker healing, instant clarity. But some things come only when you stop forcing them. Let your hands soften. Tonight, inhale gently. Exhale even slower, as if releasing one grain of sand at a time. Story 48. A farmer hurried to the Buddha at dawn. Panic written across his face. He feared losing his livelihood after a herd of animals trampled part of his field. He imagined disaster, his mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. The Buddha listened with deep steadiness. He spoke of how the mind creates storms long before the rain arrives, how fear amplifies what hasn't happened yet. Calm perception lets us respond wisely. The farmer breathed slowly, realizing his fear had doubled his suffering. Maybe you've done that too, jumping ahead to catastrophe, carrying tomorrow's pain today. Come back to this breath, just this one. Breathe in, saying, here. Breathe out, saying, now. Let tomorrow wait for tomorrow. Story 49. At sunset, a young man came to the Buddha confessing he felt lost in life. Every path seemed uncertain, every choice risky. He wanted guarantees, assurance that his decisions would not lead to regret. The Buddha listened peacefully. He reminded the young man that no lamp lights the entire road. It only shows the next few steps. Clarity grows as we walk, not before. The young man's breath steadied, relieved that he didn't need to see the whole map. Maybe you've been there too, standing at a crossroads, pressured to choose perfectly, but you only need the next step, just one. Tonight, ask quietly, what's my next small step? Let that be enough. Story 50. The night was cool when a monk approached the Buddha with quiet shame. He said he felt envy toward another monk who seemed wiser, calmer, more respected. He hated the feeling, yet couldn't seem to shake it. The Buddha listened without judgment. He explained that envy arises when we forget our own path and stare too long at someone else's. A lotus blooms only in its own pond. The monk's expression softened, as though he remembered something true about himself. Maybe you felt that sting watching someone succeed while you're still struggling. Turn gently inward. Your pond matters too. Take a slow inhale, and on the exhale whisper, may I honor my path. Let the lotus within you rest in its own quiet water. If you'd like, I can continue with stories 51-60 inches, the same style. Ban Danoi, continue. Write stories 51-60, English. Each story is 17 to 20 lines long. Write without entries or notes to read aloud. Chat GPT, Danoi, story 51. The afternoon sun glowed softly on the monastery courtyard when a merchant approached the Buddha with weary eyes. He confessed that he lived in constant fear of losing what he had: his business, his savings, his reputation. Every day felt like walking on a tight rope, always worrying the next mistake would ruin everything. The Buddha listened with quiet patience. He reminded the merchant that clinging to what is fragile only increases the weight we carry, like holding a jar too tightly until our hands ache. True security comes from steadiness within. not possessions outside. The merchant felt his breath deepen, as though he had been holding it for years. Maybe you know that fear, the pressure to keep everything afloat, to never slip, never fall behind. But you don't have to grip life so tightly. Loosen your hands a little. Take one slow breath and imagine setting down a heavy jar, letting your palms rest. Story 52. Morning dew still clung to the grass when a worried father came to the Buddha. His son had made careless choices, and he felt ashamed in front of the community. He said he had tried everything, scolding, pushing, demanding, yet nothing changed. The Buddha listened with calm understanding. He spoke of how a sapling bends in the wind, and how forcing it too quickly can cause it to snap. Gentle guidance and patient presence allow growth to unfold in its own time. The father felt a warmth spread across his chest, realizing he had been trying to rush the seasons. Maybe you've known that frustration, wanting someone you love to change now, to grow faster, act better, be wiser. But growth can't be forced. It can only be supported. Tonight, whisper, I offer patience, and let one expectation soften. Story 53. A soft breeze stirred the leaves as a young monk approached the Buddha with troubled eyes. He admitted he felt embarrassed by his wandering mind. During meditation, thoughts pulled him everywhere. Memories, worries, plans. He wondered if something was wrong with him. The Buddha listened kindly. He told the monk that a mind learning to settle is like a puppy learning to sit. It wanders, it wiggles, and it returns with gentle calling. Patience, not punishment, trains it. The monk exhaled with relief, feeling less alone with his unruly thoughts. Maybe you felt that too, trying to rest but pulled around by noise inside your own head. You're not broken. You're just human. Close your eyes a moment and invite your mind back softly, the way you would call a small, beloved animal. Story 54. At twilight, a woman approached the Buddha with tears hidden behind her polite smile. She said she felt invisible in her family, always doing, always giving, yet rarely seen or appreciated. Her heart ached with quiet loneliness. The Buddha listened with warmth. He reminded her that offerings done from sincerity carry their own beauty, and visibility begins when we recognize our own worth. A lamp shines even in an empty room. Her shoulders eased as she took this in, feeling a small light return within her. Maybe you felt unseen too, working hard, loving deeply, but wondering if anyone truly notices. Your worth doesn't depend on applause. Your inner light still shines. Place a hand on your chest and breathe gently, saying, I matter here. Story 55. A monk approached the Buddha after a difficult season. He confessed he felt jealous of another monk who seemed wise and serene. He compared himself endlessly, feeling smaller each time. He wondered if he would ever measure up. The Buddha listened with gentle presence. He explained that comparing oneself is like standing in another's shadow. You forget the sunlight falling on you. Each person has a path shaped by countless conditions. The monk felt a soft release in his breath, as though he stepped out of that shadow. Maybe you've been there, scrolling, watching, comparing, feeling like your life is somehow not enough. Your light is your own. Let it fall on you. Tonight, inhale softly, and on the exhale whisper, my path is mine. Story 56. A farmer arrived at the Buddha's grove with anger tight in his body. A neighbor had insulted him, and he replayed the words all night, unable to let them go. He feared the resentment would consume him. The Buddha listened with steady compassion. He spoke of how carrying another's harsh words is like holding burning coals in your hands. You suffer long after the fire is gone. Releasing them frees the heart. The farmer felt tension melt from his jaw, as though the coals were finally set down. Maybe you've carried words like that too, insults, criticism, a tone that cut too deep. You don't have to hold them. You can let them fall. Take a slow breath and imagine opening your hands, letting the heat drift away. Story 57. The moon was rising when a young woman visited the Buddha with trembling fear. Her life had shifted suddenly, a job lost, a relationship ending, the future uncertain. She felt unmoored, as though the ground itself had turned to water. The Buddha listened with quiet reassurance. He spoke of how even the strongest trees bend in storms without breaking, and how change is the wind that shapes new growth. Trust grows when we stop resisting every gust. The woman's breath steadied, and a small courage returned. Maybe you know that fear when life changes before you're ready, and nothing feels predictable. You can bend without breaking. You are allowed to sway. Tonight, place a hand on your belly and breathe gently with the thought, I can move with this. Story 58. A tired monk approached the Buddha at dawn. He said he felt overwhelmed by duty's sweeping paths, helping elders, learning scriptures, tending sick monks. He feared he was failing because he couldn't do everything perfectly. The Buddha listened kindly. He explained that a single drop of water can never fill a pot by itself, but many gentle drops together can fill it completely. Small, steady effort is enough. The monk's shoulders softened, relieved to release the pressure of perfection. Maybe you felt that strain trying to handle everything flawlessly, feeling guilty when you fall short. Small steps count. Small efforts matter. Tonight, whisper, just one drop, and let your breath be that drop. Story 59. The Buddha sat beneath the shade of a great tree when a man arrived. Restless and uncertain, he confessed he had many dreams, starting a business, learning a skill, traveling to places he'd long imagined, but fear stopped him every time. He worried about failing, about wasting time, about choosing wrong. The Buddha listened with deep calm. He reminded the man that even a long journey begins with placing one foot on the earth, not with knowing the entire route. Courage grows from starting. The man felt a small spark return, like someone lit a lantern inside him. Maybe you've hesitated too, caught between longing and fear. You don't need the whole plan, just a beginning. Before sleep, whisper, one small step, and let tomorrow hold the rest. Story 60. A young monk approached the Buddha with heaviness in his voice. He said he often felt guilty for moments of laziness, distraction, and days when he simply couldn't focus. He feared he lacked discipline, that something was wrong with him. The Buddha listened gently. He explained that the mind, like the body, has seasons, times of strength, times of fatigue, times of renewal. Kindness toward oneself creates the space where discipline can grow. The monk exhaled softly, feeling forgiveness bloom within. Maybe you've judged yourself harshly too, expecting non-stop focus, criticizing every dip in energy. You can offer yourself mercy. You can rest without guilt. Tonight, place a hand on your heart and whisper, I'm doing my best. Let that truth settle into your breath. If you'd like, I can continue with stories 61, 70 inches, the same voice. Bandanoi continue. Write stories 61 to 70 English. Each story is 17 to 20 lines long. Write without entries or notes to read aloud. ChatGPT Danoi. Here are stories 61, 70. Each 17-20 lines. Written in smooth narrative form with dialogue. Ready to be read aloud. 61. The monk who waited for the wind. A young monk often rushed through his day, convinced that speed meant progress. One evening, the master watched him sweep the courtyard with fierce, impatient strokes. "Why such hurry?" the master asked. The monk replied, "Because I want it to be clean, quickly." The master pointed toward the distant bamboo trees. "Do you hear the wind?" The monk paused. "Listening. It has not come yet," the master said, "but the courtyard will be cleaner when it does." Confused, the monk frowned. "What does the wind have to do with sweeping?" The master answered softly, "Everything works better when you are not fighting the world." The monk slowed his sweeping, letting each movement follow his breath. When the wind finally arrived, it carried away the dust he could not reach. Only then did he understand. By forcing the task, he had only stirred chaos. By waiting for the moment to align, the task completed itself. That evening, he realized that patience was not the absence of effort, it was the presence of wisdom. 62. The trader and the empty ledger. A weary trader kept a ledger filled with debts money owed to him. Promises broken. Trust lost. Every night he reread the list, letting anger tighten around his heart. An old Zen wanderer visited his stall and noticed the man's bitterness. "Why carry so much weight?" the wanderer asked. The trader replied, "How else will I remember who wronged me?" The wanderer smiled gently. "Show me your ledger." The trader handed it over. The wanderer opened a page and blew softly. The ink remained. "Your debts stay even when you do nothing," the wanderer said. "But your suffering grows only because you read them each night." The trader grew quiet. "Are you saying I should forget?" The wanderer shook his head. "Remember what is useful. Release what enslaves you." That night, the trader closed the ledger without reading it. Days later, he realized he no longer needed the list. What mattered was not what others owed him, but the peace he owed himself. 63. The sculptor who slept beside the stone. A sculptor found a massive stone he believed could become his greatest work. But no matter how he chiseled, the stone resisted, breaking unpredictably. Frustrated, he threw down his tools. An elderly neighbor saw his despair. "Have you spoken with the stone?" she asked. The sculptor laughed. "It is a rock. It says nothing." The woman smiled. "It speaks when you are quiet." That night, restless, the sculptor laid a blanket beside the stone and slept. In the stillness before dawn, he touched its surface and felt its contours. He noticed a natural curve, a hidden line. By morning, he had seen what the stone wanted to become. When he carved again, the stone cooperated, revealing a form more beautiful than he imagined. The sculptor learned that forcing a vision blinds you. Listening reveals the masterpiece already waiting. Sometimes, the world speaks softly, and only silence can hear it. 64. The king and the dawn that would not come. A king demanded the dawn arrive earlier because he disliked the darkness. He ordered the court astronomers to change the sky. They bowed helplessly. "We cannot command the sun," they said, furious. The king summoned a monk known for calming storms of the mind. "Teach the sun to obey me." The king insisted. The monk shook his head. No one commands the heavens, but you can choose how you meet the night. The king growled. I do not want the night. The monk led him to the palace roof. Close your eyes, he whispered. Listen. In the darkness, the king heard the quiet life of his kingdom, the river, the crickets, the distant wheels of carts moving before sunrise. All this happens without your order. The monk said, the world continues even when you cannot see it. When the sun finally rose, the king felt humbled. He could not alter the universe, but he could learn to rise with it. Peace came not from control, but surrender. 65. The fisherman and the silent lake. A fisherman cast his line into a still lake. But for 3 days, he caught nothing. Each day he cursed the water, the sky, his luck. A monk passing by noticed the man's anger. Why do you fight the lake? He asked. Because it gives me nothing, the fisherman snapped. The monk dipped his hand into the water. Ripples spread gently. The lake is always giving, he said, but not always what you demand. The fisherman grumbled. I need fish, not peace. The monk replied, if peace is not in your hands, even fish will slip away. That night, the fisherman returned with calmer breath and steady hands. He cast once, caught nothing. Cast twice, still nothing. On the third cast, he felt a pull, then another. By sundown, his boat was full. He looked at the monk on the shore and realized the lake had not changed at all. He had 66. The candle that outshone the moon. A young novice felt insignificant beside the brilliance of the moonlit night. Why should I bother lighting a candle? He complained. Its light is nothing compared to the sky. His teacher placed a single candle before him and said, carry it into the storage hall. The novice obeyed. Stepping into the dark chamber, the tiny flame illuminated everything around him. Do you understand? The teacher asked from the doorway. The moon lights the world, he said, but your candle lights the step before your feet. The novice felt a warmth within. He had spent so long comparing his smallness to the vastness around him that he forgot small flames have their own purpose. That night, he lit the candle again, not to compete with the moon, but to walk with clarity in the spaces the moon could not reach. 67. The warrior who laid down his sword. A feared warrior sought the counsel of a mountain monk. I want to conquer my enemies, he declared. The monk poured tea into a small cup until it overflowed. The warrior shouted, Stop, it is spilling. The monk looked up calmly. Your heart is the same. The warrior scowled. I came for strategy, not riddles. The monk replied. No strategy fits a heart already full of anger. The warrior's hands trembled. Then what should I do? The monk pointed to the sword. Lay it down, not forever, but long enough to remember you are human. Reluctantly, the warrior placed the sword on the floor. For the first time in years, his breath softened. He felt the weight of his armor, the exhaustion beneath his fury. The monk whispered, Victory begins where fear ends. The warrior left the mountain without fighting a single battle, yet he felt as if he had won the greatest war of his life. 68. The traveler and the stone gate. A traveler reached a stone gate carved with a single word, return. He hesitated, unsure whether it was a warning or a welcome. An old guard sat beside the gate. What does the inscription mean? The traveler asked. The guard replied, Most see it as a command. Few see it as a blessing. The traveler frowned. A blessing, how? The guard tapped his chest. Every journey worth taking brings you back to yourself. Unsatisfied, the traveler walked through the gate and continued his path. Mountains, storms, loneliness. Years later, weary but wiser, he returned and saw the same gate. The word felt different now, softer, like an embrace. The guard, older but smiling, nodded knowingly. The traveler realized that the world had not changed. He had. Return was not a step backward, but a step inward toward the person he had been seeking all along. 69. The musician who played only for quiet. A musician sought perfection in every note, practicing until his fingers bled. Still, he felt something missing. He approached a Zen teacher, who sat silently by a river. "How can I make my music flawless?" the musician asked. The teacher cupped his hand in the water, lifting a handful that dripped through his fingers. "Music is like this," the teacher said. "If you hold too tightly, it disappears." The musician closed his eyes and listened to the river's rhythm, the soft rush, the gentle pauses. He lifted his instrument and played a simple melody, one he had long forgotten. The sound blended with the river, imperfect but alive. The teacher nodded. "Play for the quiet, not the applause." From that day, the musician's performances changed. People felt something they could not name: presence. His music was no longer flawless. It was true. 70. The hermit and the cloud that wouldn't stay. A hermit watched a small cloud drifting above the valley and felt a strange affection for it. Each morning he looked for the cloud, hoping it would remain. But the cloud shifted, changed shape, disappeared. One day, in frustration, he cried, "Why won't you stay?" A passing monk overheard him and smiled. "Clouds are teachers," he said. "They show us how to love without holding." The hermit sighed. "But I feel peaceful when it's there," the monk replied. "Then be grateful, not possessive." That evening, the hermit sat watching the sky, letting every cloud pass without expectation. Some stayed longer, some vanished instantly, yet all felt like gifts. When the familiar cloud appeared again days later, he bowed to it with quiet joy. He no longer needed it to stay to feel whole. If you'd like, I can continue with stories 71-80. Bandanoi continue write stories 71 to 80 English. Each story is 17 to 20 lines long. Write without entries or notes to read aloud. ChatGPT, Danoi. Here are stories 71-80. Each 17-20 lines. Written in smooth narrative form. Ready to be read aloud. 71. The lantern maker who forgot the night. A lantern maker spent his days crafting beautiful lights, each one delicate and glowing with warm brilliance. Yet he was never satisfied. "They are still not bright enough," he would mutter, adding more paper, more oil, more flame. One evening, a wandering monk visited his workshop. "Your lanterns are lovely," the monk said. "But why chase more brightness?" the lantern maker sighed. "Because the world is full of darkness." The monk lifted a lantern, held it close to his chest, and whispered, "Darkness gives your work meaning." Confused, the lantern maker followed the monk outside. When night fell, he watched how even the smallest lantern lit the entire street. He realized he had been trying to fight the night, not illuminate it. The next day, he crafted a single lantern with gentler light, soft, steady, comforting. For the first time, he felt peace. He remembered that light need not destroy darkness to conquer it. 72. The farmer who tried to pull the rice. A farmer grew anxious, watching his rice seedlings sway gently in the breeze. They are too small, he worried. They grow too slowly. One morning he pulled each sprout upward, forcing them to stand taller. Exhausted but proud, he returned home. The next day, every plant had withered. Heartbroken, he went to a nearby temple seeking guidance. A monk listened calmly and said, "Growth has its own pace, and forcing it is the same as killing it." The farmer buried his face in his hands. "I only wanted them to thrive sooner." The monk placed a hand on his shoulder. "When you hurry life, you uproot its strength." The farmer returned to his fields, this time kneeling among the new shoots with patience. As the seasons passed, he learned to trust the rhythm of nature. The rice that year grew slowly but beautifully, and so did he. 73. The poet and the vanishing word. A poet searched tirelessly for the perfect word to finish his verse. He paced the riverbank, muttering lines, discarding possibilities. "Nothing fits," he groaned. An elderly monk nearby chuckled. "What have you lost?" A word, the poet snapped. "A single word that refuses to come." The monk asked, "Have you asked the silence?" The poet frowned, but sat beside him quietly. Minutes became an hour. As the wind brushed the water's surface, a phrase drifted into the poet's mind, soft, simple, unforced. He whispered it aloud and felt his entire poem settle like a falling leaf. "How did silence help?" he asked. The monk smiled. "Words visit those who make space for them." The poet realized he had been chasing what needed to be welcomed. That night, he finished his poem with gratitude for the emptiness that gave birth to meaning. 74. The general who built a garden. A victorious general returned home after decades of war. His name inspired fear across the land, but inside he felt hollow. One day he wandered into a monastery seeking counsel. "My hands know only violence," he confessed. "What do I do now?" The abbot handed him a small shovel. "Build a garden." The general was stunned. "I sought wisdom, not labor." The abbot bowed. "Creation is also wisdom." Reluctantly, the general dug the first patch of soil. The work was clumsy, slow, unfamiliar. But as weeks turned into months, tender shoots replaced the scars of earth he once trampled. Children from nearby villages visited, amazed that the fearsome general grew flowers. One evening, watching golden blossoms sway in the wind, he whispered, "This is the first army that brings me peace." The abbot smiled. "You have conquered the hardest battlefield, the one within." 75. The carpenter and the crooked board. A master carpenter inspected a crooked board brought by his apprentice. "Should I throw it away?" the apprentice asked. The carpenter examined the grain, the twist, the warp. "No," he said, "it will teach us something." He cut the board into smaller pieces, releasing its tension, then joined them into a curved frame, more elegant than a straight one. The apprentice stared in awe. "How did you know it could become this?" the carpenter replied. "Flaws are just forms waiting for a new purpose." That evening, the apprentice thought about his own imperfections, his impatience, his clumsiness, his doubt. He realized he had judged himself the same way he judged the board. With newfound humility, He returned to work. Under his master's guidance, he shaped his flaws into strengths, and like the crooked board, he discovered he could bend without breaking. 76. The Old Woman and the Bowl of Clouds. An old woman carried a clay bowl everywhere she went. Villagers thought it odd, for the bowl was always empty. A curious child asked her one day, "Why do you carry nothing?" She smiled. "It is not nothing. It holds clouds." The child peeked inside and saw only the clear bottom. "There are no clouds," she said. The woman held the bowl up to the sky, capturing the reflection of drifting white shapes. "See," she whispered. "The bowl holds whatever I choose to see." The child laughed, enchanted. Later, as rain fell and the child felt sad, the old woman returned. "Look again," she said. This time the bowl held the trembling reflection of falling raindrops. The woman whispered, "The world is what we place in our bowl." Years later, the child, now grown, remembered the lesson whenever life felt heavy. She learned to choose her reflections wisely. 77. The Boy Who Tried to Catch the River. A boy built small dams of stones along a river, determined to trap the flowing water. Each time, the river broke through his work, carrying the stones away. Frustrated, he kicked at the current. An old monk, passing by, watched quietly. "Why fight the river?" he asked. "I want to keep it." The boy said, "It moves too fast." The monk knelt beside him. "You cannot keep what must move, but you can learn from it." He lifted a handful of water and let it slip away. "See how it leaves without regret." The boy stared at the ripples fading downstream. "Then how do I hold anything?" The monk smiled. "By letting it pass through you, not by trapping it." The boy stopped building dams and instead followed the river's path. Feeling its freedom, he learned that some beauty exists only in motion. 78. The Weaver and the Thread of Gold. A weaver discovered a single thread of gold on her loom. Excited, she wove it into her cloth with precision, imagining the fortune it would bring. But the thread ended quickly, leaving the rest of the fabric ordinary. Dissatisfied, she unwove the entire piece, searching for more gold. Finding none, she grew bitter. A monk visiting the village saw her frustration and asked, "Why destroy the cloth?" She snapped. "Because it was not all gold." The monk examined the unwoven threads. "A single bright thread can guide the whole pattern," he said. "Why demand everything shine?" The weaver paused, thinking of her own life, the joys brief but precious. She rewove the cloth, letting the gold thread shimmer subtly across the design. It became her most valued work. She learned that beauty often lies not in abundance but in contrast. 79. The Scholar and the Closed Book. A scholar owned a rare book rumored to contain profound wisdom. Yet he never opened it. He feared he would not understand it, or, worse, that it would disappoint him. One day, a young monk visited and asked, "Why keep a closed treasure?" The scholar replied, "Mystery comforts me, truth may not." The monk gently placed the book in the scholar's hands. "Wisdom unused is dust," he said, reluctantly. The scholar opened the cover. Instead of complex teachings, he found blank pages. Shocked, he cried, "Is this a trick?" The monk smiled. "The book teaches that wisdom begins where assumptions end." The scholar started writing his thoughts on the empty pages. Unsure but sincere. Over time, the book filled with reflections more valuable than any ancient text. He realized that fear had kept him from the wisdom he could create. 80. The Shepherd and the Vanishing Echo. A shepherd often shouted into a valley, delighted by the echo answering him. But one day, the echo did not return. Worried, he shouted louder, then louder still, until his voice cracked. A wandering monk nearby asked, "Why strain your throat? My echo is gone," the shepherd cried. The monk listened to the silent valley and said, "Sometimes the world answers softly, so you must listen closely." The shepherd sat still, letting the wind pass through the grass. Slowly, faintly, the echo returned, not as a loud reply, but as a whisper. The shepherd's eyes softened. He realized the valley had never abandoned him. He had simply been too noisy to hear it. From then on, he called gently, listening with patience, and the echo always found its way back. If you'd like, I can continue with stories 81-90. Ban Da Noi. You are a professional Zen sleep storyteller, finishing a 1-hour Buddhist meditation video titled Zen Stories, 3 hours of calming Buddhist wisdom for sleep, meditation, and life. Write the closing section 700-900 words that softly concludes the journey and guides the listener into deep rest and peace. Tone and style, American English. Calm, intimate, poetic. Maintain the same meditative voice as the previous body parts. Slow, warm, compassionate. Speak as if whispering to one person who's drifting between wakefulness and sleep. Avoid analysis or teaching. Express understanding through imagery, breath, and silence. Narrative flow. Reflect briefly on the main lesson of the video. From Zen Stories, 3 hours of calming Buddhist wisdom for sleep. X. Meditation and life, but indirectly, through metaphor or emotion. Not explanation. Revisit the natural imagery used throughout river, ocean, candle, moonlight, sky, breath. Guide the listener to release all thoughts, tension, and effort, returning to stillness. Slow the rhythm gradually, longer pauses, softer sentences. End with silence, a final line that feels like an exhale. Creative guidance. Let the words feel like a gentle lullaby, full of spaciousness and gratitude. Bring closure emotionally, not logically. The listener should feel complete, safe, and weightless. End with a feeling of unity between the listener, the universe, and the present moment. Technical parameters. Section length, 800 words. Voice, soft, slow, and soothing, 110-120 words. Min output, English voiceover script, formatted in short paragraphs with natural pauses. Goal: deliver an emotionally fulfilling ending that embodies Buddhist wisdom and helps the listener drift into peaceful, healing sleep. ChatGPT Da Noi Zen Stories, 3 hours of calming Buddhist wisdom for sleep, meditation, and life. Closing section. It's all right to let the night settle around you now, like a soft blanket laid gently across your shoulders. You've traveled far in this quiet world of stories, through rivers and lantern light, through moonlit paths and warm, flickering candles. You've walked beside old monks, weary travelers, kings, shepherds, children, and seekers just like you. And through them, something inside you softened, almost without trying, almost without noticing. Now, at the end of this long, gentle journey, you don't need to remember anything. or hold on to anything. Just let the feeling remain, the feeling that life can be simple again, spacious again, quiet again. Let that be enough. You've heard stories of rivers flowing past you, unhurried, carrying leaves and time and worry away. If you listen closely, you can still sense that river now. A faint sound, a soft shimmer, drifting in the background of your mind. It moves without effort, without needing anything from you. Just passing, just flowing, just being. And maybe you recall the glow of lanterns, small, steady flames that guide the darkness rather than push it away. Let your breath be like that tonight. Not bright, not forced, just warm enough to let the shadows rest where they are. Warm enough to remind you that even the faintest light is still light. You might feel the memory of moonlight too, the kind that doesn't demand attention, that simply lays itself across the world with quiet affection. Moonlight doesn't rush, doesn't shine to impress. It just exists, gently, humbly, reflecting what's already there. Tonight, let your own heart feel like that soft, reflective, unhurried. As you settle deeper into the bed beneath you, notice how your body has grown heavier, calmer. Your shoulders have dropped a little more. Your jaw has loosened. Your breath has spread out, like ripples widening on a still pond. Nothing to fix, nothing to chase, nothing to solve. Perhaps someone listening carried a long day on their back. Too many decisions, too many voices, too much pressure pressed into the small spaces of the mind. And now, all of that can slide off, like shoes gently left at the door. Someone else may be holding a quiet ache, a heaviness with no name. Let it rest for now. Let it drift. Even the ocean sleeps eventually. You've listened to stories where burdens soften and hearts unclench. Not through force, but through simple seeing. Seeing what is here. Seeing what no longer needs to be held. Seeing that stillness is always waiting underneath the noise. And now, it's your turn. Your turn to loosen the last threads of this day. To let the mind uncoil, like a rope gently laid down. To give yourself permission, kind, patient permission to stop trying. Stop thinking. Stop reaching for anything beyond this moment. Feel how the room has grown quieter. How even the air seems slower now. How the night itself feels like it's breathing with you, matching your rhythm. Each inhale soft, each exhale softer still, soft enough to guide you downward, into a deeper, safer quiet. You don't have to follow these words anymore. You don't even need to listen. Just let the sound wash over you like a tide that's come to rest at the shore. A tide that asks nothing, wants nothing, simply offers its presence. And if thoughts drift in, because they always do, let them wander like clouds across a wide, open sky, not blocked, not pushed away, just allowed. Clouds move on when they're ready. They don't stay forever. You might imagine a candle in the distance, its flame barely moving, steady as your breath, or a stretch of sky full of quiet stars, more patient than anything you've carried today, or a path leading into a forest so calm that even your footsteps would choose silence. Let these images wrap around you the way darkness wraps around the earth at night completely, gently, lovingly. Let yourself sink into them. Let yourself sink into the space beneath your thoughts. Sink into the stillness that has been waiting for you, tender and spacious, like a hand cupped around your tired heart. All the stories you've heard have guided you here. to this moment where doing becomes resting, where effort becomes ease. The characters fade, the scenes dissolve, the voices soften, only the feeling remains of being small in the best way, carried by something larger, something quiet, something ancient as the night. You've reached the end of the path, and there is nothing left to walk toward. Just this, just rest, just peace settling like dust in a sunbeam. Let your breath slow into its most natural rhythm. Let your body melt into the bed a little more. Let your thoughts drift like paddles set down by the riverbank. You are safe. You are held. You are home. And as you drift, gently, into sleep, let the final whisper of this journey linger. The night is here to carry you. Let go and fall softly into silence.